On the 12th of February, 1554, a young woman who was known as the 9-Day Queen was taken from her prison cell inside the Tower of London. Previously, this had been a palace for her, the former queen, but it soon became the last place she would ever see. Lady Jane Grey made her way over to Tower Green, where the executioner and his block were awaiting, and he had the axe in his hand primed. Jane remained strong until her final moments, and she was, it's believed, just 16 years old when her head was struck off her shoulders by one of the most brutal women to ever take the throne. She today is buried still within the walls of the Tower of London, in a grave that is marked by a small plaque. But how and why did Mary I execute Lady Jane, her own cousin? And to support, please make sure to subscribe. Lady Jane Grey was born in the October of 1537 at Bradgate Park in Leicestershire. She was the eldest daughter of Henry Grey, the first Duke of Suffolk, and Lady Frances Brandon, the daughter of Mary Tudor, sister to King Henry VIII, and Charles Brandon, the Duke of Suffolk. This made Jane a great niece of Henry VIII and placed her in the royal line of succession, though she was far behind Henry's children, Edward, Mary and Elizabeth. Jane was born into a world of privilege and immense pressure. Her parents were ambitious, politically connected, and deeply invested in advancing the family's fortunes. They raised Jane in accordance with strict Protestant values, and her education reflected this. She was an intellectual prodigy, fluent in Latin and Greek, and versed in Hebrew and Italian. She studied the works of classical and Christian thinkers and became a devout follower of the Protestant faith. The scholar Roger Ascham, who later tutored Princess Elizabeth, was astounded by Jane's learning and seriousness at such a young age. But Lady Jane's fate was sealed not by her own desires, but by the ambitions of others, particularly John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, one of the most powerful men in England during the reign of King Edward VII, the Protestant son of King Henry VIII. By 1553, Edward VI was just 15 years old, and he was gravely ill and was nearing death. And as a staunch Protestant, he feared that his Catholic half-sister Mary Tudor would reverse the Protestant Reformation if she succeeded him. And to prevent this, Edward, likely under Northumberland's influence, drafted a device for the succession that excluded his sisters Mary and Elizabeth and named Lady Jane Grey, his cousin and a Protestant, as his heir. And in the May of 1553, Jane was married to Guildford Dudley, the son of the Duke of Northumberland. This political marriage aligned Jane even more closely with the powerful Dudley family. Jane reportedly resisted the marriage and was deeply unhappy with her new husband and her in-laws. Nevertheless, she complied, and early signs of the pressure she would face throughout her short life. Edward VI died on July 6, 1553, and 4 days later, Jane was informed that she was now Queen of England. On July 10, 1553, Jane was formally proclaimed Queen. She arrived at the Tower of London, the traditional residence of monarchs, prior to their coronation, and began preparing for her reign, but her ascension was met with confusion and resistance. The English people had long understood that Mary, the eldest daughter of Henry VIII, was the rightful heir, and Jane herself was reluctant about becoming queen. According to contemporary accounts, she fainted upon hearing her proclamation and reportedly said, "The crown is not my right, and pleaseth me not. The Lady Mary is the rightful heir." Nevertheless, she was caught in the machinery of others, ambitions, and her parents, her father-in-laws, and the dying kings. And for 9 days, Jane was queen in name only. Meanwhile, Mary Tudor was rallying support in East Anglia. Popular sentiment strongly favoured her. She was the daughter of a king after all, and seen as the legitimate heir. Prominent nobles and the people rallied to her cause, and on July 19th, only 9 days after Jane's accession, the Privy Council in London declared Mary the rightful queen. Jane was deposed without bloodshed. She and her husband Guildford were imprisoned in the Tower of London. Now, initially, Mary was inclined towards mercy. She understood that Jane had been a pawn and not the architect of the attempted coup. Jane's life was spared, initially, and there was hope that she might be released or quietly married off to a loyal noble. However, their political situation quickly grew more dangerous. In early 1554, Sir Thomas Wyatt led a Protestant rebellion known as Wyatt's Rebellion against Mary's rule and her impending marriage to Prince Philip of Spain. The rebellion failed, but it changed everything for Jane. Although Jane played no part in the uprising, the fact that rebels cited her as a preferable alternative to Mary made her continued survival politically untenable. Mary's advisers, particularly the Spanish faction, urged execution. To marry Philip, secure her Catholic reign, Mary needed to show strength. Jane's father, Henry Grey, had foolishly joined Wyatt's rebellion, sealing his daughter's fate, and mercy was now no longer politically viable. On February 12th, 1554, Jane and her husband Guildford were executed. Guildford was beheaded first on Tower Hill, and Jane was allowed to see his body being brought back in by a cart from her window. Though shaken, she remained composed, and Jane's execution took place inside the Tower of London on Tower Green, a rare honour, usually reserved for nobility. Contemporary accounts describe her calm demeanour. She walked to the scaffold with dignity, dressed in black, carrying a prayer book before the assembled witnesses, and she declared her innocence of seeking the crown. "Good people, I am come hither to die, and by a law I am condemned to the same. The fact, indeed, against the Queen's Highness was unlawful, and the consenting thereunto by me. By touching the procurement and desire thereof by me, or on my behalf, I do wash my hands thereof in innocence." She then recited Psalm 51. "Have mercy upon me, O God." When blindfolded, she lost her way to the block and cried out, "What shall I do? Where is it?" A bystander helped her place her head on the block, and her final words were, "Lord, into thy hands I commend my spirit." She was believed to be just 16 or 17 years old at the time. Lady Jane Grey's story became one of the most poignant tragedies of the Tudor era. Protestant martyrologists like John Fox memorialised her as a Protestant saint, portraying her as a symbol of innocence, intellect and faithfulness. In Fox's Book of Martyrs, she is described as the most noble, learned and godly Lady Jane, unjustly slain for her religion and the ambitions of others. In modern times, she has been reinterpreted variously as a victim, a heroine, a scholar, and a symbol of female agency caught in the machinations of a patriarchal and political society. Her life, and especially her execution, highlight the dangers faced by women and young people in the volatile world of Tudor politics. She had no real power, yet was made queen. She had no army, yet was called a traitor, and she had no ambition for the throne, yet died because of it. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And again, thank you so much for watching.